Now, WSAV Storm Team 3 on your side presents Storm Watch.
Good evening. I'm Chief Meteorologist Chris Allred with Storm Watch. Last hurricane season, 8 different storms smacked into the U.S. coast. There were 21 named storms in all. The season ranked as the 3rd most active year in history. And with repairs and recovery efforts still ongoing, it would likely go down as one of the most expensive hurricane seasons in history. And yet, besides seeing a little bit of action from Tropical Storm Elsa, we lucked out again. But luck eventually runs out. Today's hurricanes are getting stronger, they're lasting longer, and they're intensifying more rapidly than ever before. So if a storm heads your way, you need to hide from the wind and run from the water. You will need to get out.
It's becoming the norm. Another above-average hurricane season is in the forecast for 2022. The prediction? NOAA's calling for a range of 14 to 21 named storms. 6 to 10 of these could become hurricanes. 3 to 6 could become major hurricanes. That's category 3, 4, or 5, where winds are stronger than 111 miles per hour. And the confidence in this forecast, well, it's high. And if it does turn out as expected, this could be the 7th straight above average hurricane season. Just looking back at 2021, it wasn't as prolific as record-shattering season in 2020, but it was still an overachiever. There were 21 named storms, 7 were hurricanes, 4 of which were category 3 or higher. The first storm of 2021 formed in May, and the last one formed in November. So it was a long and active season, and it was an expensive one, costing roughly $80 billion in damage. The most destructive storm of last season was Hurricane Ida. It flattened entire communities after making landfall in Louisiana as a category 4. The storm left more than 1 million people without power, and some of those outages lasted for months. Ida also brought chaos to the Northeast, where it dumped up to 10 inches of rain. So several areas saw record totals in a single night. New York City even took a direct hit from Ida. Subways turned into walls of water. Floods pushed cars down streets. Basement apartments were flooded. Residents were trapped. Even more devastating, the death toll. Estimates say Ida and its aftermath led to 91 deaths across 9 states. But back here at home, once again we got lucky. We only had to deal with Elsa, which was the first hurricane of the season. It formed into a tropical storm on July 1st in the Caribbean. A few days later, Elsa headed across the Georgia and South Carolina coast. In Jacksonville, winds from Elsa caused a tree to fall on 2 cars during an afternoon commute, and 1 person was killed. In Georgia, there were reports of multiple injuries after an EF2 tornado hit an RV park. Then throughout the coastal empire and lowcountry, we saw tropical storm force winds and flooding rains. Widespread rainfall totals were about 3 to 5 inches, but Skidaway Island got the most with 8.2 inches. The heavy rain flooded several roads, with 13 people needing rescuing from their vehicles. And it's estimated the total cost of damage from Elsa was around $240 million.
A siege of hurricanes and tropical storms over the past 5+ years has inflicted $500 billion of total damage in the United States. Beginning with Hurricane Matthew of 2016 through Hurricane Nicholas in 2021, 19 hurricanes and tropical storms caused at least $1 billion in damage in the U.S. Now, not only are tropical storms costly, but they are dangerous. Emergency management officials in Georgia and South Carolina are encouraging you to do these 3 things during hurricane season. Know your zone, prepare your home, and remember your route. Be aware, if you live in a coastal area, you are prone to flooding from storm surge. And even if you don't live along the coast, you could still see some impacts from a tropical system like strong winds, tornadoes, or flooding. And know your hurricane evacuation route if an order is issued.
2022 is shaping out to be a pretty active year in terms of the types of emergencies that people in South Carolina need to prepare for. So it's always important to have that personal emergency plan and make sure everyone in your family knows what that plan is.
With each tropical threat we talk about storm surge, flooding, coastal erosion. Storm Team 3 meteorologist Alyssa Carsley breaks down why our flooding threat continues to increase each year.
It feels like we use the word flooding just as much as any other meteorological word. coastal flooding with the onshore wind flow.
Flooding, coastal flooding.
Right next to Victory Drive, which is notorious for flooding.
Flooding for areas that receive excessive rainfall.
So why has it become a frequent, everyday common occurrence, especially during hurricane season? Well, it comes down to a few things that both increase the problem and go hand in hand. Starting off, we have main rivers that bleed into smaller rivers and creeks all over. During any event, water can easily pile up in those waterways. And with wind pushing water onshore, the water can't retreat. It can't move anywhere. One example of this happened during Irma, but this also happened last year during Hurricane Ida. Ida left major flooding in its path through the U.S. All that water had to trickle down to rivers and then to the ocean, leaving us with elevated tides. And high tides are only set to get higher due to the new wobble in the moon's orbit. The moon has a regular wobble in its orbit that takes just over 18 years to complete. In a study released by NASA last year, this new wobble will affect our gravitational pull and influence the tides. The moon is in its tide amplifying cycle currently, where high tides get higher and low tides get lower. This cycle allows for more water to be pushed onshore, taking longer to recede. We already saw this last November, one full week of coastal flooding due to a strong coastal storm. 6 consecutive days where high tides reached minor to moderate flood stage, with the highest flooding occurring on November 7th with 10.45 feet, which is now set as the 4th highest tide on record at Fort Pulaski. From our coastline sitting near sea level to our far inland communities only climbing to a few hundred feet above sea level, we are all sitting at a low elevation. With a mainly level or gradual decline to the ocean, it is going to take water a longer time to drain and allows for water to sit a little while longer.
Another growing concern during hurricane season is the population boom in our area. Census data shows thousands more people are calling the coastal empire and Lowcountry home each year. What does it mean if you need to evacuate then? Because when you have more people to get out, it will take longer. WSAV News 3's Jessica Coombs spoke with the Chatham Emergency Management Agency to find out its plan.
With any population growth and also with infrastructure changes that happen throughout a community, it does affect your evacuation timing. So we have methods in place to where we can actually adjust our population count. We can adjust how we feel the community is going to react to an evacuation order. So we can move that evacuation timing up or down based on the conditions that exist within the community, both what is our occupancy, what is our tourist occupancy.
Census data shows Chatham County continues to grow at a steady pace, with areas like Pooler becoming a hot spot for families, seniors, and young professionals. Dennis Jones says planning ahead is critical when you're making an evacuation plan.
Chatham County, you're looking at almost 300,000 people that you're trying to get out of an area within 24 to 36 hours. So it is going to be congested along the road networks, and we want to make sure that people have ample time to get out. And we also want to make sure that those with a special need or a particular need, that they get out a little bit earlier than the general population.
Chatham County officials say with constant population growth means more tourists on places like Tybee Island. So not only locals need an evacuation plan.
There's always a large influx of tourists in our area. Oftentimes those tourists come from areas who have never even seen a hurricane, or they aren't impacted by hurricane threat. So we want to make sure that we're educating them as well.
Jones says partner agencies work together to create easy access to information, but he says nothing should replace having a personal emergency plan and kit.
We also encourage everybody to have a family communications plan and how they're going to communicate with each other in an emergency situation. Also, where are they going to go if they have to evacuate? How are they going to get there? We really want to make sure that they are doing those two simple things, putting that plan together and putting that kit together. And if we can do that, we'll be a much more resilient community.
Reporting in Chatham County, Jessica Coombs, WSAV News 3, on your side.
The Civic Center will still be the evacuation assembly area. SEMA says in the event of an evacuation, Georgia and the American Red Cross have built a plan to send people to cities around the state. Now, still to come, protecting one of the most popular destinations in our area.
We know we're going to get hit by a storm at some point. How fast can we bounce back from that?
The unique threats Tybee Island faces from tropical cyclones and how leaders are working to protect the people who live there.